Alright, so you're opening up After Effects, you're trying to get it to um, work with you and your computer as best as you can. So this first little tutorial or whatever video is aimed to help you um, set After Effects up for your own liking, your own tastes, your own benefits, but also to make it so that it works with your machine as best as possible. Um, so when you first open up After Effects the first time, you generally have this welcome screen where there are tips of the day listed here. You can cruise through those things with the arrows. And then if you have any open or recent projects that you've had open for a while, you can cruise through those. You can open a new project, jump in a new comp, there's help, and so on. Or you can say, you know what, this window annoys me. I don't want to see it anymore, which is what my tendency is. You hit close, it's gone. So this is about setting up After Effects for optimization. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the After Effects menu, go into our preferences, and just take a look at a few things. I'm not going to cover everything here, but just a few things to help us make things work better. Right off the bat, under General, you have levels of undo. Basically, an undo is a recording of an action. So After Effects will just record every little step that you do. So if you move something, if you set a keyframe, you change opacity or whatever, each little step is recorded, and all those little recordings are saved in your RAM. So your memory, those little sticks that you put in your computer to make your applications work well. So the more undos you have, the more space you use up on RAM. However, the fewer undos you have, the less safeguarded you are from mistakes. So I would say maybe a happy zone might be 40 levels of undo. Then if you just look through all the little things here, showing tool tips, creating layers at start time, these are all just things that you eventually are gonna figure out if you like this or not. They have it set up as a default, things checked, unchecked, because they seem to think this is a good starting point, but we always end up coming back to preferences at some point to make something work for us better, or we're about to go through a technique that we need to address something. So you come back in here and you can change things. So I suggest you just look through this and take some time to see if anything makes sense. If you're new to After Effects, most of it probably won't, but as you get used to the way this program works, then coming back into preferences is definitely helpful, because you'll see a few things in here where you're like, oh, that's how you do that. Cool. A lot of things in here, though, are about making After Effects work better. So, oh gosh, anything here we should change? No. So we're just going to go to next. And basically, if you hit next, you're just going down this list of categories. So previews. Previews. If you're trying to cruise through your project's timeline, basically After Effects will give you a fast preview where it doesn't draw everything pristinely. It just makes it kind of chunky, but allows you to see the general movement, the general colors and all that stuff. So it's like big pixels based on what you have set here. And a quarter is what they have it set up as. If you went to an eighth, then it's going to move even faster. It's just about how fast is After Effects going to respond and be able to draw the image for you. Most computers nowadays have good video cards that support OpenGL, and you want to make sure this is enabled. OpenGL just allows the video card to do a lot of the work, and let the processor in the computer do other stuff. So it's a very good thing. If this is unchecked for some reason, you may not have a computer that has the support for OpenGL, but something you should look into. If you don't, you should look into buying a video card. They're cheap and they're totally worth it. Blah, blah, blah. Let's see here. Everything else is good. We're going to move on to display. Yeah, nothing to look at here. Importing. If you ever import image sequences, you can change the still footage duration, but we're just going to leave it set to length of composition. That really helps us out during these classes. And then when you come back into doing something specialized, like an image sequence, then that's when you want to come into preferences and change something like that. Here, output. Yeah, nothing there. Grids and guides. Your grid and your guides have a color and a certain size and all that stuff. Pretty much starts off as green and purple, but what happens if you're working on a purple project? Your guides aren't going to stand out. So if that's something that you observe, you come in here and you change your guide color to, yellow or whatever, or change it to dashed lines instead of lines. It's all about your personal preference, which is why these are called preferences. You can set up your own label system. That's pretty overwhelming. I've never ever had to change any of this stuff, but not to say that someday I won't. Disk cache, this is something that you would want to enable. It allows you to choose a folder somewhere on your hard drive to save rendered frames basically while you work, temporary. So you just want to make sure you find a folder somewhere. Oh gosh, documents. I'll call it AE cache. This just basically is a backup. Your cache, your images are saved to your RAM until you run out of RAM. And if you have this checked, then it'll just say, all right, well, I've run out of RAM. Now I'm going to go to your hard drive and save it there. So that's good. Don't have to worry about anything else. But one last thing before we move on. The disk cache, you're pointing it to a place on a hard drive or something like that. It generally should be pointed to a drive that is not the same location as where your source material is coming from. So if you're using Photoshop files or movies or audio, whatever, usually you want to have that on a hard drive sort of dedicated to itself, and then another drive where you're writing to, just so that you have a nice smooth flow of traffic, basically of information. But often we're working off of one drive, and we're not as lucky to have lots of drives. I'll explain that in a little bit in greater detail. Video preview. Come here, you. There we go. This is where you can, if you had another like a external monitor hooked up or hooked up to a TV or something like that, you can preview your work through that at the same time while you work. It's really nice to be able to do that, to sort of reference how it's going to look on TV. It's usually what we're doing is we're making something for TV, but you got to have all the hardware in order to do that. So we'll move on. Appearance. This is nice. Here, if we take the brightness down, ooh, look at that. We just got nice and dark, and just you feel less stress on your eyes now, and that's basically why Adobe is allowing us to do this. We're working in a visual medium, and we're creating work that has color and light and dark and contrast, and the less visual interference and noise that we have blasting off of our screen, the better we as artists are going to be able to interpret our color, our own brightness, and our contrast in our work. So this is something that definitely recommend you do. And if you ever go into a editing suite or a hardcore designer's studio, you might notice that the wall, at least behind the computer area there, the viewing or the editing wall is neutral in color and generally darker because they do the same thing in the room. They're like, hey, well, why have anything that's going to distract our attention, from our work? Autosave. Here we go. Geez, why isn't this thing checked by default? Even CS5 now, they don't have it checked by default. You want you want to save your butt, save your projects without having to hit save all the time. So turn that sucker on and figure out how often you want it to save. Every 20 minutes might be too much time that passes while you are cranking out a lot of work. So maybe 5 minutes looks more appealing. Memory and multiprocessing. This is sweet nowadays with so many computers having multiple processors or multiple cores that act as separate processors. You can take advantage here of your, well, first I'll talk about memory. It tells you how much RAM you have. Here I have 8 gigs of RAM, and the RAM that I have reserved for other applications is 1.5 gigs. So the RAM that I have for After Effects is 6.5 gigs, which is great because I have 4 processors in this computer here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, what's up? I have got some processor cores that I want to take advantage of, and I have enough RAM to support it. You have to have at least 1 gig of RAM per processor. So I know I'm in good shape here because I have 4 installed CPUs. It tells me that right here. And I have 6.5 gigs of dedicated RAM for After Effects. So that means that each core will have plenty of RAM. It's awesome. Love it. RAM allocation per background CPU. This only happens if After Effects just starts to choke because it has too many layers or too much stuff to think about, and even the extra cores and the extra RAM you have aren't enough. So it'll just kind of bump back down to acting like it's a single processor when it has to. No big deal. Audio hardware. Boop. Yep, no big deal there. And audio output mapping. Why even talk about that? So there we go. We've gone through. We said, all right, how can I make After Effects work better and perform better with my machine? And how can I make it perform and work better for me and my liking? And we hit OK, and it saves all that stuff, and we're taken back to After Effects. So I'm just going to talk about a few more things here. To make sure that After Effects is going to work best for you, we all have these little thumb drives, and they're awesome. Holy smokes, these things are incredible, and they're getting so small and cheap. They're great for exchanging information, between your computer. When you are working on After Effects, do not ever use these things. Look at that. Definitely says no, doesn't it? We read that loud and clear. Do not ever work off of one of these. If you have pictures and music and an After Effects project and they're on your thumb drive, get them off of there and put them on your local hard drive on the computer, and then just get that thing out of the computer. Just move it out, just eject it and physically take it out so that you're not mistakenly using it at all. So I'll tell you what, we think we're smart, but sometimes we're not. I'm sorry, but it's the truth. I've seen it happen too much. Use it to just, quickly bring a file into your computer, pull it off, copy it, paste it, whatever it is you need to do, and then eject that thing, get rid of it. They're great for working between the computer. Maybe you are coming from home, coming into the lab, right? You've got some things you want, so move them off there, put them on the computer, and then say sayonara. Um, your best bet when working with a drive, a hard drive, is a drive that has FireWire capacity. FireWire just communicates at a higher rate of data transfer when it comes to video protocols. So if you can get your hands on a FireWire drive, now we're talking about an interface and storage device that can actually communicate fast enough. Maybe I need to go back here and just explain real quick. It's just too slow. That's why. Too slow, and it's going to dramatically decrease After Effects performance at USB 1. FireWire, nice and fast when it comes to dealing with the type of work that we do in video and graphics and animation. So if you can get your hands on a FireWire drive, much better off. Two different kinds of FireWire, FireWire 400, FireWire 800. 400 is already a thing of the past. If you buy any computers now, they don't have a 400 port. They have 800. So 800 is faster, more robust. We like FireWire. And okay, your ideal setup for After Effects work, if you can swing it. I'm gonna make this a little bigger. Can I? How big can I go? That's better. All right. Your ideal setup, but not necessary, would be 3 hard drives. And it sounds crazy, but it's true. 1 hard drive for your operating system and your applications. So you're running After Effects and all the other stuff that's happening on your computer in the background off of 1 drive. And then you have another drive dedicated just for source files. So this is where all of your media is located. And you know, it could be an external or an internal drive. If you have a nice Mac Tower anymore, you can put in like 5 drives. Those are stellar. But if you can run off of external drives here too. So you'd have all your source files on an external. So you're reading from that one. So the flow of traffic of information is from the drive to After Effects. And then you'd have another drive dedicated just to renders, making your movies. Well, if I was a little more thoughtful, I would have put this thing like over here. I don't know, it doesn't matter. Anyways, you would have a drive that's dedicated just for your renders. So the flow of traffic is going from After Effects to the drive, not interfering at all with the flow of traffic coming from the first drive that is running the program and all your operating system work, the second drive, which is reading all of your source files, the third one actually writes to it. How often do we actually have the opportunity to set it up this way? Not very often. That's why this is not necessary, but it is ideal. It will help After Effects cruise through these processes of reading and writing much better. All right, so that's basic optimization for After Effects and dealing with your preferences. And we'll move on to interface and basics here shortly.